Sai Ram. I have been thinking about this. I don't have any idea of what I'm going to say. Well, Gene has prompted that it be the early days. I'll tell you how I got to Swami then. When I was 19, somehow somebody saved my life, and it was marked with a spiritual experience, a very wonderful experience, just very instantaneous, sort of a light. I don't know what, but this thing saved my life. And I had been rather agnostic up to then, and I started getting really serious about figuring that out. And over the years, I more and more identified with yoga philosophy. I tried Buddhism, Zen, Chinese philosophy, but I really liked the yoga and the Upanishads. And then 9 years later, I knew about Swami from like 4 years later. I first heard of him, but I'd already read, like the Yoga Sutras, and I heard about yogis getting siddhis, powers where they could materialize things or float through the air, or do all these different things. And my understanding was you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be showing your siddhis. You should, put that aside. You have a spiritual goal. So when I first heard about Swami, I thought, oh, this young guy, he's wasting his life. And so for years, I didn't really make an effort to find out about him, but I kept hearing more about him. Then, so 9 years later, something had prompted me, and there's a story, but I won't go into it. Well, yeah, I'll tell you. There was a lady in New York City, Hilda Charlton, who had been to India for a long time, and she was having meetings every Thursday night. And I was in New York for a few weeks and going to those meetings, and Swami's birthday was coming up in 1975. It was on a Sunday, and we had a birthday party at NYU Law School Student Lounge, hundreds of people. I think somehow there were 800 people there. And Hilda said, okay, kids. She's an old lady, and she called everybody kids. And she did a guided meditation. So this is a birthday party, so I'm going to give you a birthday present. So imagine 3 presents and open each one. So what's in the first one, and then what's in the second. And the idea that I had, I didn't have any clear perception, but the idea was the first one was love, and the second was light, and the third one I couldn't tell what it was. So she said, now choose which one. So I thought, oh, the light, because I really remembered that. And I thought that would be something to, but then I thought, and it wasn't my thought, I think Swami gave me, no, love is more fundamental. So I said, okay, love, I'll choose the first one. And the next morning I left New York, and I was coming back to California. I got about halfway, and I stopped at my sister's apartment, and I sat down to meditate in the closet. And when I was doing that, I just thought, Sai Baba, Sai Baba, Sai Baba, and he gave me this cosmic vision, like the whole universe sort of thing. And the main feeling was love, and I had to go see him. So 3 days later, I was like going back to New York, getting on a plane after I got my visa and everything. And so when I got to India, some people had told me, oh, stay in this little hotel in Bangalore, and devotees go there, you'll find somebody. So I stayed there, and this guy walks in and says, Swami's out of town for a couple of days, he's coming back. Why don't you come stay in Whitefield? I have a room in my house. And so I stayed there. Swami came back in the afternoon, So I thought he knows everything. It's just overwhelmed with what's going to happen. What's it going to be like to meet him? And it was in Whitefield way back in the days when the driveway was lined with those trees that had the orange flowers. And he came out in the evening and walking down the driveway, and this is my first sight of him. And so when he was about 30 feet away, he's just glances, like that half second when you see somebody and you either recognize them or don't, and you just look away, that sort of. And so when he did come by, though, he said, very happy, very happy. And I could feel his aura. It was like this energy. So that was my first contact, and I didn't know didn't know anything about this. In a day or two, he went back to Buddha Party, and this was Christmas time. That was December 19th, the first day I saw Swami, and it was Christmas time. Also, I didn't realize this for years. I knew they just had the World Conference, I think the first World Conference, where they started doing every 5 years, in 1975. And so some people were still around from that, but there were like 40 Westerners and a few hundred Indians around. And it was the first time that Swami ever had a Christmas celebration. So we did a processional with candles and singing Christmas carols. And Swami gave us a group interview in the mandir. Now I think about it, maybe it was like 80 people. It wasn't full. So Swami was walking, we're sitting on the floor, and Swami's walking among us, and he came by, and I better touch his feet. I didn't know how to relate to that either. And so I did, and he just sort of walked and sort of kicked my hand away. So I didn't think that was the right thing to do. Then just around New Year's Day, I had bought Sandeya Nivarini, the book. The English subtitle is Dispelling Doubts, and I took it to afternoon darshan. I started reading it, and the first few pages, it's a devotee who's coming to see Swami every month to get his questions answered. So the first few pages, it said something that, like, Swami, this is supposed to dispel doubts, and now I have a big question. I don't know what, and Swami, you have to answer this. And at that second, he walks out of the mandir, and he starts on the lady's side, and he's calling foreigners, calling them sort of individually. And he walks past me, and he didn't call me, so I'm still sitting there. And he looks back, you too. So I go in, and we sit down. Dr. Hislop was there. We sit down, and Swami immediately says, anybody have questions? So I thought, well, he's doing this for me. So I had this question. I asked a detailed question, but somebody got the first question. Mine was second, and he gave a detailed answer. And well, the lesson is, the devotee in the book had said, Swami, some guru came to my village and I had an initiation, and it was okay, but then later I started having doubts about this guy, and so now should I abandon that and try something else? And Swami said, no, that's a great sin. Once you take the name, you can't abandon it. That's unchaste devotion, I think, or something like that. So I had already been trying to figure things out, and I'd tried 2 or 3 different ways of meditating and things, and so I didn't know what to do then. So that was just around New Year's Day, I'm not sure which day. Anyhow, after that interview, Hislop gathered everybody around. He said, "That's the most extraordinary interview. Let me make my notes, and everybody help me remember all this." And so a lot of that's in his book. And my question's there too, but not the way I remembered it. So I spent the next month, I spent all of January. Oh, as soon as we got to the ashram, Tumba Rao said, "Okay, look, we got rules now." I didn't realize it. I started to say, it's just after the World Conference, so the whole sense of organization had changed, and I didn't know. We have rules now. If you're going to stay, you have to get Swami's permission to stay more than 2 months. So Shivaratri, which is a really famous event in the ashram, was just over 2 months away. So I wrote a little note, "Swami, can I stay for Shivaratri?" And they never said anything, but they let us stay. So that Shivaratri was the end of February. Here it was 19th of December, and well, maybe the 21st or 22nd of December. And Shivaratri was like the 28th or something, end of February. And so we never got any answer, but I stayed. But at the beginning, I think February 1st, Swami called me in individually, and he's on the, I forget, it seems like it was on the apron of the veranda, but maybe it was at the door of the interview room. Like, "You staying a while?" I said, "Yes, Swami, Shivaratri." And he smiled and said, "Yes," said, "very happy." And I think the reason he's smiling, the joke was that I stayed until the next Shivaratri and beyond. And so let me say about that. I went with a 4-month excursion ticket, and I had a 3-month visa, and the ashram said 2 months, so I thought, well, those are my parameters. But I stayed that long. So from December 75 until November of 83, just under 8 years, I spent 61 months there. And that was never like planned, but that's the way it worked out. So Swami gave me this interview, and he made me a japa mala, and he said, "What name do you like?" And I said, "Swami, I don't know." And well, I mean, it's strange because I didn't know how you can talk to him. I thought he knows everything, so how do you talk to Swami? He knows everything. And actually, a lot of times when I talked to him, I didn't use words, like I just think of it, and he would answer me. Oh, well, let me tie this in. A few years later, because he never acknowledged that, that experience. He never, I thought I'd go see Swami and, I'll get this wonderful experience. And it was really hard work. And I didn't get that experience, never. And so a few years later, I'm in an interview and I say, "Swami, what was that experience?" He said, "What experience?" And I just thought. And he says, "Oh, that. Your heart was very pure then, not so pure now." And he has a saying, it's criticism, but maybe it's encouraging too. Because he has a saying, "When the heart's sufficiently pure, all truth will flash on in an instant." And when he said that, I thought, "Swami, I've been with you like 3 or 4 years, whatever it was. How's my heart not more pure now?" I didn't say it, but I was wondering what's going on. But Swami gave me several interviews that week. He gave me this japa mala, and he said, I'll show you. I'll show it to you. You probably want to see it. I brought my trinkets here. So it's just these, it looks like really cheap glass beads, and it was strung on very thin copper wire, and the wires broke and the beads break. But he showed me, he said, when you say the name of God, this is Jiva and this is God. When you say that, the two come together. You make contact with God when you say the name. And these are the three gunas. So saying the name of God has nothing to do with the three gunas, and it's just the Jiva and God. So every time you say the name, it's like this. And I had this yoga lore that I'd been exposed to. It said, never touch it with the index finger, that's polluted, you do it like this. And I said, Swami, like this? And he took it back and he said, yes, yes, like this. And when he made it, let me tell you, when he made it, we were in an interview with like a dozen people, and I'm standing here in the corner of the interview room, his chair's on that side, and he's standing in front of me, but he turns away, and he does his hand in a big loop, sort of a horizontal, but a big loop, and the thing just appeared right there, and he grabs it, and he put it around my neck, really proud. He was just such a wonderful thing. And so I thought, Swami gave me a Javamala, and now I'd been working hard trying to meditate and everything, but now I really have to. So all hours of the day and night, I was trying to find some place to meditate, and after a few days, he called me in and said, how much are you doing? What are you doing? And he said, no, look, just like 3 times, morning and evening, that's enough. It actually amounts to about 2 hours if I do it, but he'd just calm down a little bit. So, I had a lot of interviews. I don't know how many, easily 50, I don't know how many. And sometimes I thought, why am I in this interview? Just another interview, why am I here? Well, I don't know if there's any reason, maybe some spiritual thing I'm totally unaware of. Just, he let me be there, like, a pet dog or something. You can sit around on the floor. And so, it's strange. I never could figure out who are these people that are attracted to Swami, what ties them together. They're every type of person and every type of spirituality, and what does Swami want and why has he brought them here? And I never could figure that out. I don't know why, why he gave me a lot of attention. I was trying really hard. I was doing a lot of sadhana, but maybe he just liked that. Maybe that pleased him. Also, I don't understand how most people relate to Swami. And when that surgeon was here before, and he told about all this stuff being so close to Swami, and I told him I don't understand. I just don't understand. I don't really relate to the form very much. Swami would come for darshan. Well, if I was outside, I'd usually just watch him, and if I maybe give him a letter or talk to him or something. But when I went there the next year in '78, I stayed from '75 to '77, and then I went back in '78, and while I was back in California for that year, I was sort of living like a hermit. I had a little place up in Northern California, and I built a little cabin, and I would meditate all the time, morning and evening. And so when I got back, Swami, right away, I had a nice room in West 2 or something, and Swami called me in, and he said, oh, your room, there's some ashanti, there's shanti here, come here and do your meditation. Oh, Swami, when? He said, anytime, come and go, I'll tell the volunteers. And I'm not quite sure. Maybe I made notes about it, but I don't quite remember. But it was really my impression he wanted me to sit on the veranda. So when the interview was over, I sat on the veranda. And they let me do that for a few days. But Hislop was there again at that time. They let me do that for a few days. And I was thought, well, I'm going to sit here and meditate. I'm not going to talk to people. And also, this is another thing about the first trip. I arrived during the emergency, Indira Gandhi's sort of, I don't know, not exactly. She really clamped down on all sorts of civil liberties, and people didn't talk, about anything political. And also, when you arrived in the ashram, they tell you, you people, you foreigners, you come here for a spiritual purpose. Don't socialize, don't make worldly connections. You go back home, you have plenty of chance to make your worldly connections. Here, you do your spiritual thing, make a connection with God. And I was really pretty strict about that. I didn't talk to people. Well, you have 3 or 4 roommates, of course, you talk to them, but mostly I didn't socialize. And the Indians, even the people, Swami's assistants and everything, I just didn't talk to them. So I'm sitting on the veranda the next year, and I'm not talking. And Hislop says, no, look, that's not the way to do it on the veranda. You have to sort of, chat with people or something. I said, well, I don't understand it that way. And Kutumba Rao, after a few days, comes to me and says, Guru Purnima is coming. Would you sit in the veranda, in the mandir instead of the veranda? We need room for all the state presidents and people. Well, sure, that's great. I'd love to sit in the mandir. So Guru Purnima came and went, and after a while, I asked Kutumba Rao. He was Swami's main guy who ran the ashram. So I asked him, well, am I supposed to be on the veranda? And he tried, and then I asked him again. He says, well, Swami won't acknowledge the question. So I just stayed in the mandir, and I was sitting in there 7.5 hours a day, just trying to meditate. And so when Swami would come in the mandir, I sat right in the back, in the dark corner, right by the back door. When Swami would come in, a lot of times I didn't look up. I'm just going to sit here trying to meditate. That was kind of fun, though, having that spot. Swami would come in and watch over me, too. Not particularly spiritual, but I was sitting in lotus position, and there was something that I couldn't quite break through, and so one day I'm going to just do it. It was a big improvement in my lotus position when I just I'm going to take a risk and do this thing. Swami came in and said, how are you, sir? That's what he would say to me a lot, just at darshan. Well, how are you, sir? And Swami, I don't know. I just shrugged. And he says, fine, fine. So it was sort of an approval, a small little achievement there. Right now, most of the interviews are not that memorable for me. You see Swami doing an interview, and he's teaching his message, love all, serve all, or whatever. He has a bunch of these sayings, and he'll plug away at those. And so after a while, well, he's doing the same thing. Of course, he talks to people individually and all that, but I can't say that right now any of them are that memorable to me. When I was leaving India the first time, he was in Whitefield. It was March 1977. And he called me in for an interview, and there was a small group of people, and he sent all of them away except the one Indian woman. Well, you know, the summer course comes in May, and the year before I had been an invitee. It was the time it was in Uti. So he invited me up there, and I got to go in with the students and listen to all the lectures. So I'm sitting on that side of his chair, and the woman is on this side, and I'm there. And the woman has a bottle, like a liter bottle of rose water, and a silver tray or metal tray. And she wants to do pada puja. She wants to wash his feet in rose water. And he takes it away from her. He said, no, no, no. Artificial devotion. And he opens the bottle and he sprinkles water on both of us. And then he's talking to this woman about the stuff in Telugu or Kannada or whatever the language he's speaking. And every so often he's saying summer course, something, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not really listening to that, you know, and talking to her. It's none of my business. And then he turns to me, he says, oh, you want to come to summer course? I had just explained to him how my visa, which the police had totally forgotten about, and I'd gone to the police and they said, you have to leave, and they gave me orders to leave, and my time was up. I'd explained to him that my visa was shot, and he understood that, and had told me to come back next year. And he, oh, you want to come to summer course? Well, Swami, that'd be nice, but my visa. Oh, go to Bangalore and see the IGP. That's the Inspector General of Police, like the top cop in the state, I think. He's my devotee. I'll help you. So my flight's the next day, you know, and I go to Bangalore and I go to this guy's office. I mean, even the taxi driver was impressed. I go to this guy's office, and I'm sitting there waiting, and his deputy comes out. Very nice gentleman, very nice, very good manners, and very pleasant. He said, well, what do you want? And I said, well, I want to have more time to stay here to go to the summer course. And he said they couldn't do that. And I don't remember exactly and everything, but you know, can I talk to the chief or something? No, we can't do anything about this. And I said, well, Swami said he'd help me. He was in Whitefield, you know. The year before at summer course, at the very beginning, Swami called us in for an interview in the house there. And we're sitting around doing this interview. Dr. Bhagavantam is translating. And the phone rings. And Swami's right here and Bhagavan's right here. Bhagavantam is on the phone. Oh, yes, blah, 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 answers questions. And so Swami says he's going to help me with my visa, see the IGP. And so I tell the deputy, I said, well, call him up. You must have the phone number. And no, we can't do that. And so really, I didn't know what to do. So I went back, and the next morning, Swami totally avoided me at Darshan. And then my travel agent had said, no, don't give up your reservation. You know, you can give it up later, but if you give it up now, you know, you might be in a big mess. So I still had my reservation, and Swami totally ignored me, so I got on the plane and came back. And Swami had told me to come back next year. Well, when I was leaving India, I realized that this was Yugadi. That's the new year. And so I thought, maybe I come back the next day. How long am I supposed to stay away? When is next year? What is it? You know, and I didn't get any message like now it's time to come. So I'm living my hermit life up there in Northern California, and after 15 months, I think, well, by any calendar, it's next year. Maybe I should go back. So I went back. And first thing Swami said to me, he called me for an interview right away. First thing he said to me, Miss Summer Course. So he remembers all these things. How are we doing for time? I really had no plans about staying there for long periods of time. But the first time I stayed 15 months, and the second time I was the same situation. I got 3 months visa and 4 months ticket, and I stayed 15 months again. And let's see, 78. I went back in 1980, and Swami, there was a big world conference again, 5 years, 1980. So there's a lot of construction, more and more buildings going up, and the first round building was built, and so after the World Conference, after birthday, Swami assigned me a room in that building, so I had a room there. And Swami started telling me, oh, stay permanently. And the first 2 times I stayed 15 months, and the second and third times I stayed 7 months, because, you know, visas were a problem. And Swami's telling me stay permanently, and Swami, when I was leaving the first time, and I told Swami about my visa and I had to leave, he said, oh yes, government very strict, you can't stay illegally, you know, very strict. And so when he's telling me to stay permanently, well, Swami, what about the visa? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll help, you know, somehow. But it never worked out. So I would stay my 6 months, and my time would run out, and I'd ask the police for, you know, give me a little more time to make my plans, and they'd give me another month, so I get 30-day order to leave. You probably don't want to hear too much about my visa stuff, but in 1983, somehow I got special permission from Delhi, and I stayed 16 months. And my time was up. No, I stayed 17 months. I stayed 16. And my time was up. And I'm ready to leave. I'm in darshan, and Swami comes around. I say, Swami, leaving tomorrow. And he said, oh no, this was October. Oh no, stay for birthday. Swami, I just been to Bangalore. They're not going to give me more time. No, go back. I'll help you. I'll do this. So I went back. I knew everybody in Bangalore, so it was really quick. You know, I just go to everybody. No, we told you yesterday. You know, we can't do this. So I stayed. That was the last time Swami spoke to me. I stayed the next month. I'm like, okay, I'm staying for birthday. Why? Why do I need to be here for this? And because I don't really like being in the crowds, you know, why am I here? And then I left, and I'm thinking, I'm going to go back and stay permanently. But when I get back to, I got an excursion ticket from India to California and back. When I got to California, I was blacklisted. I couldn't get a visa for years. I didn't go back for 12 years. And then When I went back that time in 1995, it was like having a voicemail. As soon as I got in the ashram, it was like, do not need an interview, which was both a command, don't think about you need an interview, and also a diagnosis. You don't need an interview. And so I'd been exiled for 12 years, and I thought maybe I'm really on the blacklist for the ashram too. I didn't know if they'd let me in or what. I didn't know what had happened. And it was fine. And so I thought I would stay maybe 30 days. And then after 30 days, it was really nice. And well, let me stay 3 months. I have a 3-month visa. And then I extended it to 6 months. And Swami would not talk to me. He would take letters, lots of nice interactions, but no words. And I couldn't say anything to him. But it was really a wonderful time. So I've been back a few times since then, but the last time I went was March, April 2008. And the voicemail when I arrived that time was, I will speak to you. And I thought, well, Swami's not speaking to anybody in darshan anymore. What am I supposed to, how's this going to happen? So I went to the volunteers. I said, you know, who's in charge of sitting on the veranda? They said, oh, you have to see, I forget the guy's name, the Swami's secretary. So I went there, and a young man, a Sevadal, sort of intercepts me. He said, what are you here for? Do you have a card? And he's going to see if the boss would talk to me. And oddly enough, I had a card in my pocket. I had a business card in my pocket. And I also had Swami's calling card, which I never carry around. But when I was going, I put them both in my pocket. He said, you have a card? And I thought, well, that would be really presumptuous to show Swami's card. So I just gave him my card. And after a while, he had me sitting there. He said, no, boss is not here. He can't do this anyway. So I, Chakravarti. So I was only there just over 2 weeks. And the day before I left, I sat in an area I hadn't been sitting in, but Swami was never going that place, but I just let me sit here. And I was in the front row, and Swami came by. He, went up on the veranda, and his chair came down off the veranda, and right in front, he turned the corner about 12, 15 feet away, and he leans, and I didn't hear any sound, but very slowly, he says, how are you? And I say, good. And he hadn't talked to me in more than 24 years. And then, I'm sort of, it's very touching. And Swami goes by, and this young man next to me says, are you the guy who was in Chakravarti's office? And yeah, how do you know? Well, I'm the Sevadal that talked to you. And he says, when Swami does that, he usually means he wants you to come up and talk to him. And I said, I was crying. I said, I didn't know that. He said that to me 100 times. It never a signal I'm supposed to go talk to him or something. So,
So you missed your chance.
what's that?
You missed your chance.
Well, no, he could have called me if he wanted to talk. I think that's what he wanted to do. Just, that's over. Not talking to you is over. Done with that.
He just melted your heart.
Mm-hmm.
He melted your heart.
Melted my heart, yeah.
How do you feel about his passing, Jesse?
I don't feel much about Swami's passing. I was surprised because, I thought this is going on a long time, but at some point he'll get his little tumbler of water and sprinkle himself and he'll be fine again, because he said he'd be 96 years old. And also he said he wasn't going to get old. The body's not going to get old. Well, he definitely was getting old. But I thought somehow this is, part of his work. He'd come back and he'd be vigorous and do something. So I was surprised. Actually, that morning, I got up at 3 o'clock, and I never turn on the radio at 3 o'clock, but let's turn it on. And right there, the BBC as well, Sathya Sai Baba passed away. So I got early report of it Sunday morning. But it didn't really have much effect on me. I didn't relate to the physical form very much. It's always been a mystery to me. Who is Swami? And one of the first things, you might say I figured out, but it was a message. One of the first things I learned in the ashram, nobody can measure him. You can't really say who he is. And it's always been a puzzle, a marvel. And the experience I really valued was the internal experience, and Swami never gave me very much of that in the physical form. I don't understand most of what devotees talk about, actually. I was there at Christmas time, talk about memorable interviews. I was there at Christmas time in, I think, 2005. A big group from Southern California went. And day after Christmas, this was the first time that the chorus was there to perform, and everybody else was going to sing bhajans, and Swami put his chair out, and everybody sits in front of him. And somehow I chose to sit way in the back, the last row, right in the corner. And we sit down, and we're singing bhajans or whatever's going on. And so that voicemail, that Swami says, "Don't look at me." So I'm just sitting back there, Swami's up here, and I'm the guy in the back sort of looking. And it was sort of like the Bhagavad Gita, and these questions just poured out of me. And Swami was giving me these answers that were just amazing. That's, I'm sure, the most memorable interview, and there was no word spoken. And so my life in the ashram, I usually worked pretty hard at trying to do my sadhana. And every so often I'd get some really nice experience, like, wow, let me do that again. And it was totally out of reach. That was just a gift. And it disappeared. I mean, maybe I would have some feeling for a day or two, like this feels special, but I couldn't repeat the experience. So I had a lot of those things happen, and I can't even remember what they are. They don't belong to me. They were gifts. I mean, maybe I've achieved something, I have no idea about it, but I'm in the dark. Question.
Did you ever figure out the pure heart thing when he told you your heart is pure and it's not as pure?
Figuring out the pure heart. Well, there's probably several aspects to that. I have a tendency to be really austere or whatever, and on the other hand, I'm living in this world, so you get distracted, like, oh, that's cool, I'd like to have a new computer or whatever, and I'm trying not to think about these things, but maybe, and I'm sort of fighting with Swami after a while, like, Swami, I'm supposed to stay permanently, and I don't know what to do about the visa, would you please? So I sort of had maybe an attitude about something. I was not quite the pet puppy I had been at the beginning, and so maybe if I'd been better, I'd still be there. But I don't think so. I think it was all part of the plan. And I don't really feel bad about him saying that. I mean, it sort of hurt my feelings, but I think it's encouraging, you know. Like, your heart will get purified, you know. It's up to him. He's taking care of it. I think in my first time there, I was so ardent about trying to meditate, and like not even, sometimes, I was kind of crazy. You know? And one time, Swami seemed kind of amused, and he's like, okay, I'll give liberation. So I sort of think maybe it's promised. I have no idea, like, am I any closer to liberation or not? It seems like I'm maybe farther away, but, you know, maybe this is the school. He's teaching me. He's giving me what he wants to give rather than what I think I want. That's what, as far as the pure heart thing, India in those days is a socialist country, and they very restrictive on foreign trade, and people were just so hungry for any kind of consumer goods. Like, Indian industrial production was pretty primitive in that line, and people like, oh, he's got a digital watch or something. It's like, you don't really want to attract attention. And so one time I had a camera, and I'm sitting in the front row, and I'm taking a few pictures of Swami. I just feel like this is the wrong thing I shouldn't be doing. And I put it down in my lap, and Swami comes by. He says, how are you? Sick. That was his answer, you know. So, you know, all sorts of factors could have made me seem not pure, I don't know.
When you say that you went in the ashram and you worked really hard, what kind of work were you doing?
I was meditating a lot. There was no seva to do. You know, one time after years, like, Swami, I just can't, I was trying to meditate a lot, and I just can't keep doing this so much. I said, Swami, can I have some work? Oh, work. Yes, yes, I will give morning to night, busy, busy, busy. Yeah, well, when's he going to give the work? And never. And I tried, you know, like, who needs some help? The gardeners, you know, planting flowers or something. And it just did not work out. There was nothing to do. There's no seva to do. It's not like it is now. I mean, definitely there's things that could have been done, but it was really maybe xenophobic, you know, like, you foreigners don't mess with our stuff, sort of thing. That's the way I felt, like, there's nothing to do. So, well, maybe keeping me busy morning to night, I guess that's what I'm doing now. So, you know, I can suppose that this is Swami's gift here.
I think he wanted you to clean your own house. He wanted you to work on you.
So, yeah, it is about working on oneself.
Got something else to show us?
Well, he gave me the japa mala, and the wires broke. I restrung it 2 or 3 times since then, and the beads broke, and I would glue them back together with epoxy. A few days later, he gave me this ring, and I was kind of flabbergasted. I did not want anything showy or flashy, you know. It's like, oh no. And all my trinkets came the first year. So at one point, this is unique. At one point, he made me this pendant. Oh, it was in Whitefield when I was leaving. It's a metal disc with, it's black, it's got a black sort of, not paint, but anodized or something, and scratched in it is this. And well, that one with the symbols, only 5 symbols though, and in the middle it says Om Sai Ram. So this was the day Swami told me, go see the IGP and, stay for summer course. And so when I went to Bangalore, I went to the jewelry district and I got a silver chain and I wore it. And sometimes I wouldn't wear the ring because I really, I don't want anybody's attention on this. And so one time I was in the ashram and the little dog ears here, one of them wore out. I knew it was wearing out when it broke. And I went to, one time Swami pulled it out and he said, Om Sai Ram, this is no good. I think Swami made it. How's it no good? No good, Swami. Well, I'll change it. So it broke. I thought, maybe it's time to change it. So I have it with me and I'm in the front row. And Swami's coming and he's a couple feet away and he says, where's the ring? Or wear the ring, I don't know. And he's not talking to me, it just comes out of him, he's like just there in this. I say, what? And he comes right to me and he's like, change the subject, just some sort of interaction. And so he'd answer the question, don't do this, wear the ring. And sometime he gave me his calling card I mentioned. Here's a little card. He's sitting there on the floor, and it has his address. Let me put my glasses on. It says it's written in type Bhagavan, and then he signed it Sri Sathya Sai Baba, and then it has his address. Quotation, Prashanti Nilayam, Panakanda, Paran Talaka, Anantapur, Paran Dist, Andhra Pradesh, India. A little card. There were like 13 people in the interview. And he says, how many? And he just does this, and he had exactly the right number. So, also, when he made the ring, he put it on. He made it not looking at me, turns around and holds it in my face, in his hand. What is this? What is this? I didn't know, so I don't know. And he shows me the ring, and then he shows it to everybody, and he puts it on my hand, and he like the correct fit. Yes, Swami, it's correct fit. But in fact, almost ever after that, it's been too loose. I mean, it's okay for my knuckle, but it's too loose on my finger, so it flops around. And so I just habitually wear it to the side. It doesn't get noticed, and it doesn't flop around. So those are my trinkets. That's Sairam.